If I was to ask you if delayed or instant gratification is better for you, you'd probably say delayed. I don't have to convince you otherwise. You already know that running, working out, and working in general is much better for you. You already know that this burst of dopamine that you get from the instant gratification stuff, like doing drugs, playing video games and shit like that, is cool, but then you always enter this trough of feeling like lethargic and amotivated and shit like that. As you know, when you work, when you run, when you work out, etc., yeah, it kind of sucks in the beginning, but overall, you will get more happiness from it. This is what leads to a fulfilled life. So why is it that you're motivated to do the wrong thing? And keep in mind that we're going by the definition of maximizing pleasure. Like, we're fucking hedonists here. Don't get me wrong. If we just look at pleasure, it's still gratification that lives. It's still gratification that triumphs. So why are we drawn to the stuff that gives us less pleasure? If you can answer this question, by the way, this is going to be like a red pill moment for you. If you can answer the question, why are we drawn towards things that literally are against our nature of being happy, we will unlock the code. We will crack the code and we will be motivated. I haven't made a promise like this on YouTube before, but if you watch this video, you will be motivated. I repeat, you will be motivated. In this video, as you can see, it's a fucking long one. It's very advanced. If you watch this and you actually understand the deep topics, which I'm going to explain, we're going to go over every single thing that I found in my life and my client's life, stuff that like are motivation blockers, as I like to call them, stuff that blocks motivation, stuff that cancels it out towards the right thing. Why are you motivated to do the wrong thing? It's a very interesting question, and if we can actually reverse it and start getting ourselves addicted to the right thing, then we will fucking win. Okay, so the first thing is energy. I'm probably not going to talk about too much here because you already know it. You know, YouTubers like to tell you, oh no, you should be drinking 3 liters of water a day. You should be getting 8 hours of... You already know this shit. I'm not going to look at you like you're an idiot. You know most of this stuff, so I'm going to like speed run it. I'm going to take like 2 or 3 minutes. Don't eat processed sugars, don't eat processed foods for the most part. Drink 3 liters of water. And probably the biggest area that I can go into in this 2 minutes is actually sleep, because a lot of new research came out on sleep in the recent years that a lot of people don't know. So the most important thing when it comes to sleep is actually consistency. So consistency matters because your rhythms align when you're consistent. So if you go to sleep at 8 and then you go to sleep at midnight and then you go to sleep at 10, your body's not going to know what the fuck's going on. Your body's going to be expecting you to be like awake, and you're going to be energized, and you're going to be full of like these hormones that help you focus. And when you try to sleep at that time, not only are you going to have trouble falling asleep, but when you're asleep, you're not going to be maximizing the quality of your sleep. So sleep consistency is literally the thing that matters the most. This is what recent papers came to. Now, the second thing is actually circadian rhythm. So circadian rhythm basically means when you're asleep, pretty much. This basically says, you know, it's your body clock. You already know this for the most part, but body clock basically determines, is that like 12 p.m., I think, or a.m.? I think it's a.m. I don't know this American time, by the way. So between midnight and 4, you should be asleep. This is basically your body clock. Your body senses when you should be asleep, when you should be awake based on what time of day it is, and it senses that through your senses. For example, if you get morning sunlight, your body starts this onset of melatonin in like 14 hours. So that means like 2 hours before you should be going to bed, you will start to pump the sleepiness hormone. So you should try to get morning sunlight as well to actually match your circadian rhythm. But for the most part, your body will know when it's nighttime and when it's daytime. And for that reason, no matter what season it is, no matter what chronotype you are, during these hours, you should be asleep. People who aren't asleep during these hours are like scientifically considered sleep deprived. I repeat, if you're not asleep between midnight and 4, you are sleep deprived. These hours you should always be getting, and like obviously you shouldn't only be asleep for like 4 hours. You should be supplementing this with an additional 4 hours preferably, which brings us to our third point, which is actually sleep amount or time. I'm just going to write time here. So make sure your sleep schedule is consistent for the most part. Obviously you don't have to have it the same for your whole entire life, but just in seasons of life you should have it consistent. You should be asleep when it's nighttime, and you should focus on sleeping for enough time. Other than that, it's really the like traditional advice: just exercise, don't eat shit food, drink water, yeah, calm. Okay, the second thing is environmental blocks. Now we're getting a bit deeper. Pause on that. So first of all, we need to look at physical environmental blocks, which is usually talked about as distractions. So distractions are what kind of block us even when we are motivated. You know, you kind of want to do the thing, but things get in the way. And when things get in the way, we're like, yeah, I don't know, I don't want to do it that much. So it's kind of like the friction we need to think about. And if you make it easy for you to do the thing, you're going to be much more drawn to doing it because it's so much easier. You know, we calculate return on investment. If our body has to expend a lot of energy to do a certain thing, we're going to be less likely to do it. So how easy are you making it for yourself to do the things which you want to do? You want to work. Yeah, but is it easy for you to sit down? Is it easy for you to boot up your computer? Is it easy for you to do that if you're working online jobs, for example? Or even if you do that, is League of Legends on your home screen? Is it easy for you to get sidetracked? Are you making the thing that you shouldn't be doing easy to do? How easy is it? You know, this fucking Steam boots up when you load up your computer. You get notifications about ordering food on your phone. All of this has to fucking stop. So let's start with physical distractions. Is your desk clean? There's been countless studies which actually find very, very solid correlations between your mental and physical clutter. If your desk isn't clean, that gives your brain an opportunity to latch onto stuff. Because even if you see like not only like desk, if you see like a picture on your wall of your grandma, she's looking all like nice with her fucking curly hair, and this is your grandma. That's kind of a scuffed grandma, I'm not going to lie. But if you look at her on the wall, just a painting literally, you could be getting sidetracked. Your brain could be going down a rabbit hole of, oh, I wonder what she was like. I remember when she told me this story. Oh, I wonder what her kids were like, etc. Oh, you probably know what her kids were like, whatever. It's very easy for you to latch onto this kind of stuff. Your brain is looking for excuses, especially when you're doing a hard task, to be like, oh shit, I wonder what that is. Oh shit, I wonder what this random clutter on my desk is. Oh shit, there's an apple. Yeah, I wonder how old this apple as well. That's crazy. If you don't have anything, what is your brain going to do? You don't really have any options, do you? So again, you might get stuff like this. You might get notifications. You might get random alerts. You might get stuff on your home screen. How can you eliminate them? Well, just think ahead. For God's sake, sit down and actually have the humility to say, I probably am going to get distracted during this session. How can I not? How can I make sure that I don't get distracted in advance? These are the kind of high IQ questions which, if you actually have the humility to ask, you will get much further ahead. How do I usually get distracted? Oh yeah, I boot up my PC and I see this random game that I still have on the home screen. Oh yeah, I actually have my phone on my desk and I'm getting random notifications which actually distract me. And the reason I'm going so hard on distractions is because... Do I need to pause on that? I don't know. It's because you can conceptualize of distractions as this, this is your flow state, you're at 100% focus, yeah, you're going, and then you get distracted, and then you're out of it, and you text someone, and then boom, you're back working. Nowhere near the reality, nowhere near, because this is what actually happens. You go up, you're high, yeah, you're not that high, at least I hope you're not high. You're high in focus, and you go down, you get distracted, and then you have to kind of work yourself back up, because it's not an instantaneous thing of actually getting back into flow. Flow state takes time, and Cal Newport calls this attention residue, which basically means your attention leaves residue, and you have to kind of climb back up once you get distracted, and it's usually more of like a 15-minute process instead of 15 seconds. So it's quite hard, and distractions are actually very, very costly, and this has been measured in multiple studies before. So if you can just pay attention to not get distracted in the first place, that's the best thing you can do. And also, if you have these kind of distractions, the biggest problem with it, essentially apart from the attention residue factor, is you might get a text. Ava texts you, hey, are you coming to Abby's birthday? And then you're like, yes, and you send a cool meme, and then she's like, wow, that's really cool, and then she hearts it in the group chat, and then you're like, 2 minutes later, you're still thinking about it, you're like, yeah, I wonder if Abby hearted it, yeah, oh, I should check, oh yeah, she hearted, oh yeah, I should reply with something else to increase my aura points, and then you're like, oh, fuck, I've been thinking about this for 15 minutes now, and I'm still nowhere near back to work. And you have the ability to rebound. Now you have to build yourself up from back here because now you're texting again. If you didn't know the text existed and you answered it 2 hours later, what the fuck's going to happen? Nothing. The birthday's still going to happen in a few days. You're still not missing anything. And by the way, if you're saying, oh, what if it's an emergency? I have to have my phone on my desk. First of all, no, you don't. Emergencies don't happen, okay? It's very, very rare. And if an emergency does happen, the police or the ambulance will be the first one to be called. Furthermore, most of the modern phones have double dial features, which means if there's an emergency and they dial you twice right away, the phone will ring. So have your phone on your bed or a bit further away from you and have it on Do Not Disturb. Just don't have notifications. Notifications are such a outdated concept. Why would you want to give people your time for free? People pay to have your attention, just crumbs of your attention. People pay for ads on all social media services and you're giving your attention away for free. I mean, it doesn't really make sense. I don't have notifications for anything. Yeah, so delete notifications, reduce physical clutter, and the final thing that you should be paying attention to when it comes to environmental blocks. Oh no, there's two more things. So you have people as well. If you have random people in your apartment or in your flat or in your co-working space who drain you, I mean, how do you expect to be productive? If these people are constantly planting ideas in your head that are negative, that are not conducive to your goal, that are taking away your time and energy, obviously you're not going to be as productive. And obviously you're not going to be motivated to doing the things that you want, because you know how the saying goes, it's very cliche, but it's very true. The average of the 5 people you spend your time with, you become some shit like that. That's a very, very rough paraphrase, but that's kind of what happens. And just if you just give away less of your time and less of your energy, or you give it to people that actually lift you up and support you, you're going to be much better off. And the final thing I want to talk about, we've talked about elimination, but I want to talk about addition as well, because sometimes when we get into these sessions, we stop or we get distracted because of lack thereof, which basically means, for example, you start working and you get hydrated, and you need to get hydrated, and you don't have a cup of water on your desk. Stuff like this, which we can preemptively think about, not just removing notifications, removing clutter from your desk, but adding stuff such as water, for example. That's a very common one. You sit down, you're 40 minutes into your session, and you get really, really like dry mouth, and you need to drink water, or you just need to go and take a piss before you sit down to work. These are very simple things, but yet people don't think about them. You're just like, you sit down, and the way you learn to work in your corporate workspace is like, oh, I can look for any distraction so I can slack off work and I can take as much time off as possible. But that really isn't conducive to focus. That really doesn't leave you being productive and motivated to be productive in the future. So if you can fix these, and if you can actually make sure that your focus isn't being blocked by all of these environmental factors, and you actually don't have anything in your way, and you can let your focus actually get you to where you want to be, and you can be motivated, you will be motivated. Okie dokie. The third thing I'm going to talk about is dopamine. And dopamine is probably the thing I like talking about the most in some aspect, because dopamine is probably the easiest way for me to flex my skills. Because I've researched it a lot, and people online have clearly not done the same amount of research, because the amount of bullshit that is spewed online about this neurotransmitter is insane. At least I consider it to be insane. So I'm not going to talk too deeply about dopamine. I'm going to talk about dopamine when it comes to very specific motivational factors which could serve as like motivation blockers, which is mostly the concept of dopamine history. So what dopamine history basically means is, let's just consider an average day, which obviously there's a lot of things, a lot of thoughts, a lot of everything that goes into an average day, but let's just consider an ideal day where only 3 things happen. This whole day, only 3 things have happened. And those things are, maybe you go on TikTok when you wake up. You go on TikTok. How do you draw the TikTok icon? Something like this. You go on TikTok, then you read a book which you're kind of interested in. It's like a cool book. And then you eat an apple. These are the only 3 things that happen on this day. You get a huge spike. Let's say this is about your baseline. You get a huge spike, which is, it's supposed to be like 4 times your baseline, but I didn't draw it too accurately. So this is supposed to be like what? About this high. So this is about the TikTok spike, realistically, but let's just draw it here for this example. Then you read a book, which goes slightly above your baseline, and then you eat an apple, which you don't really like. Maybe it's a bit sour. You don't really like sour apples. Apples are kind of okay, but you kind of sense that it gives you a bit of nutrition, right? So it's kind of like nice as well. You get very slight boost for this one. You like the book, so you get a bit more boost, but it's quite natural, so it's not that high. And this artificial dopamine of TikTok is incredibly high. The biggest problem with this is that dopamine used to signal, quite accurately, survival. It used to signal that something is worth doing. Dopamine is not the reward hormone, it's the purpose or pursuit neurotransmitter, if you wish. And the reason that is because the only things that you could do really realistically to get dopamine back in the day were challenging people, were actually succeeding, thriving, and winning, and eating stuff that actually helps your survival, and reproducing, and this kind of stuff that made you win. Based on your genetics, it made you win. Whatever you considered as good, that was what dopamine gave you. And now scrolling on TikTok, just because of the novelty of it, gives you so fucking much compared to this stuff that it's insane. And this artificial stuff like drugs, synthetic stuff, and social medias and this kind of stuff has hijacked your dopamine, and stuff like chocolate even, for that example. The only way you could actually get these fast absorbing sugars is by eating honey, which is very, very nutritious, and stuff like fruits, which are like quite nutritious as well. Nowadays, it's so easy to do this stuff. So whenever you try to read, whenever you try to eat an apple, and whenever you do this kind of stuff, which is like kind of good for you, your brain's going to be like, wait a minute, why aren't we doing this? If we have access to this and we recognize that the return on investment is very big in this, because it's easy to do, it's instant, and it has very, very high perceived achievement, why are we doing these things? Why aren't we just doing this? Or actually do this, because it should be a lot higher. So you understand how your brain is just being completely rational when you're drawn to doing TikTok, when you're drawn to doing drugs. 100% rational, because your brain is actually understanding that this is going to lead me to where I want to go. These circuits developed over hundreds of thousands of years. These are not developed by accident. What is developed by accident is this fucking technology that hijacks all of our circuits, because our brain couldn't adapt in the past decades when these were engineered, or even just years when these were engineered. So Now you're running on outdated software. And the biggest problem with this is that we don't have a quick fix for this. We don't have a quick solution because all of the fucking geeks, all of the technicians, all of the software engineers are working on making these things even more addicting, even higher, even higher, even higher. That's their full-time job, to capture your attention, and yet you have notifications enabled. I'm going to keep hammering away on notifications because it's an insane concept to me now that I've seen the light. So just fucking disable notifications, back to dopamine. Try to cut as many of these out as you can. I'm sorry, there really isn't any other solution. I'm not saying you need to cut everything out. I still do some instant gratification, believe it or not. I still look at Instagram from time to time. I still send some fucking cute cat videos to my friends. I still text people. I still drink alcohol from time to time. I'm not doing it in a way where my circuits get hijacked entirely and I'm doing it every day and I'm getting too many of these reference points. But the rule of thumb is, for the most part, if you want your work to be the most fun thing, or the thing you want to optimize for, the thing you want to do in this season of life, you must make it the most fun thing. That's the easiest way to get a lot of progress done. Or if you don't want to have a crazy extremist life, just have a threshold kind of drawn at where the most important thing in your life is. So for example, work, that would be like a natural thing, and everything that is artificial, like pornography, chocolate, this kind of thing, etc., etc. You understand that basically the bad things, you kind of have a concept of what the bad things are, have the least amount of possible bad things above it. So basically, if I was going to try to work as much as possible in this next few months, I would be like, okay, realistically, what can I cut out? Right now I'm doing very, very tasty, very taste-enhanced foods. Maybe I'm going on TikTok, and maybe I'm doing drugs. I don't know what I'm doing. I'd be like, okay, I'm willing to give up most of those, but maybe I'm going to keep one or two in my life. I still want to salt my food. I still want to eat some delicious things, but I'm ready to cut out all of the other vices that I have. That's a logical approach, and that's not too extreme. The best people, the biggest higher performers, actually cut everything out above this threshold. So they're like, everything that I couldn't have access to 100 years ago, I'm not going to have access to now. And that is literally how you make your brain addicted to the good thing. That is literally how you abuse this circuit, or abuse, I say, but it's actually in a good context, in a way where you get addicted to the good thing. Because you're now addicted to this thing because it's the best way you get dopamine. If you were doing heroin, best believe you would be addicted to it. That's why it's probably the most addicting substance ever. Or some amphetamine is, for example, because those are like 10 times spikes. If you can just cut out most of these things that are artificial, you will be good. So just a rule of thumb, you don't have to cut out everything. I'm not going to tell you to go too extreme, but just please limit them, at least very, very heavily. Okay, the next topic we're going to talk about is mental health. I probably would have clicked off the video right about a few years ago, because I really I don't want to say didn't believe in it, but it was like big gay, a bit, I don't know, fuck off, don't tell me about mental health. Tell me about the top 10 good business models to get to 10K per month at. This is the stuff what will get you to 10K per month, or whatever your goal is, right? It's probably a bit higher than that. The thing is, this stuff works. This stuff works very well, and I'm going to tell you a story to kind of elaborate on why this stuff works. So about a year ago, I was starting a new business, and I was with my then business partner who I was doing a marketing agency with, and my first client actually, who we had as a business partner, who we had as a client in that business. He was a coffee shop owner, and we were providing marketing services for him, and we were kind of making his coffee shop more sales, essentially. That was our job. Now he came to us and he was really liking what we were doing, and he was like, wait, how can we kind of automate this? How can I use my network of coffee shop owners, and I can use my knowledge of coffee shops, and we can kind of make a software that is automated solutions of what you guys are doing for me, but we market it through my network of coffee shop owners. So we were kind of trying to automate the solution and have a higher reach of people that we reach. And we were trying to combine the three of our knowledge to make something that's a lot bigger than us. And we were like, yeah, come on, yeah, very high. We were having very big goals. We were having a lot of meetings. And that's kind of how it went. We started this new company, even made like the LLC for it. And we set unrealistically high expectations. And the reason I say unrealistically, this is probably the key word in this one, is because we didn't have any fucking humility at all. We didn't have any idea about how to run a software company. We didn't have any idea about how to reach foreign audiences, because we were trying to market it in a foreign country. We were very, very short of doing this. We weren't even close, not even close. Yet, for some reason, we rationalized ourselves and we were like, yes, we can do this. Now, the reason I highlight this and the reason I say this as the example is because this is incredibly common incredibly common that we watch a motivational video that tells us to set high standards, which is true, by the way. We should set high standards. But these kind of videos already have the assumption that we are far ahead, that we are like the person who is talking. We watch Jocko Willink, we watch David Goggins, and they're like, yeah, run 100 miles with a fucking broken leg. And we're like, yeah, we can run 100 miles with a... No, we fucking can't. How about you run 1 mile first instead of sitting on your dusty, crusty, musty-ass fucking computer chair? How about you get up first and tie your shoes for yourself and do shit like that? Like, it's insane to me the amount of arrogance that we as human beings have just because we see someone else's achievements and kind of rationalize it as our own. So stop setting yourself unrealistic expectations, because every single time you get into this hustle culture mindset of, yes, I'll work 10 hours a day when you haven't even been working the past week. Now you're like, I'm going to work 10 hours. Yeah, buddy, yeah, sure. Because this is what I did. I was like, for myself, I'm going to work 10 hours per day when I was working like 5 to 6 maybe. And I dropped like a lot of things in order to work 10 hours a day. I dropped cooking meals for myself. I ordered like unhealthy takeout. I dropped training sessions from here and there. And I even said no to some invites that I got from friends to connect. And the thing is, I started working about 1 or 2 hours a day because the rest of the time I would just be procrastinating. I didn't have the system which kept me fucking sane. The reason I could work for 5-6 hours, actually deep work, and actually not kind of in this state of constantly accumulating attention residue, as we established in the previous examples, is because I had a good system. It's because I could lock in. It's because I had a healthy system. And once I got rid of it, once I stopped talking to my friends, once I stopped eating good food which fueled my body, once I stopped exercising, once I stopped all of these systems and I introduced these kind of fucking environmental and mental blockers into my life, my work plummeted, even though I was optimizing for work. Now, this could work for some people. I'm not saying it can never work. What ends up happening in these kind of... hours. I can't even read my fucking handwriting sometimes. So some people can do this. Like if you're Hermosi, you've been working for like 10 years straight. Yeah, sure, you can work like 14 hours a day. I don't know you. The thing is, we are all very different. And I was starting out from a position which I was not in. Mentally, I thought I was a lot more ahead than I was. And I simply wasn't. And I ended up making no progress in 6 months for that reason. Once you do this, you enter a flawed system because you drop the things which make you you, and you think it will get you higher, and it will get you to 10, and it will get you to 1 in reality. And that's what ended up happening for me when I wasn't working. And I also got into a business where my business partners were also quite flawed as well, in my opinion. I was also, so I'm not trying to direct blame to anyone. It just wasn't a fucking good system to be in. It was very bad, and we were setting high expectations. Our system was entirely flawed, and we were in negative states of mind, and it ended up falling short all of the time. We didn't even make a fucking dollar, and we spent thousands of dollars on it and 6 months of time. So you can imagine it was probably the biggest colossal failure that I've ever done. And then I ended up beating myself. I was like, come on, you got this. You can, that's what happens. That's what happens when you fall short. And the thing is, especially when you're so over-identified with it, because all I was doing was working. So where do you think I got my self sense from? Where do you think I got my kind of sense of self from? Why do you think I fucking crashed out so hard when I stopped achieving the results that I wanted to? It's because I was so identified with my work. Once you're working only a few hours a day, you still have a life around you. You still have your friends, you still have the nice meals, you still have the habits that you do, you still have the hobbies. You still have a life even when your work is not that good. But once you're over-identified with this shit, and once you're in this hustle culture mindset of, yeah, fuck me, I'm going to beat myself up, I can't believe it, yeah, aggression, everything, maybe you can do it for a day, maybe you can do it for 2 days. But discipline won't last every single day. That's why we're talking about motivation, because this is how it works. If you have these are days of the week, right? This is 1, 2, 3, 4. These are days of the week. If this is your level of motivation, some days you have better motivation, some days you don't. And this is your action threshold. You only want to use discipline once you don't have the action threshold, once you don't reach it. So these days, motivation is enough to get us to work. These days, motivation isn't, because they are below the action threshold. These are the days where you want to use discipline. But the thing is, once you're running on a flawed system, your days are going to look like this. This is going to be your action threshold, and your days are going to be looking like this. And every single day you're going to have to use discipline, because you're not getting any fucking motivation. And if you have to use discipline 7 days out of 7, you're running on a fucking flawed system. You're never, ever, ever going to be successful. And people glorify fucking discipline like it's the best thing ever since sliced bread. But the thing is, it's cool. It really is. I really like discipline as a tool because it does this. It gets me above the action threshold when I need it. But the thing is, it's not going to make things happen for you. When David Goggins says that he's disciplined, when David Goggins says that discipline is the best thing ever, he means it because cool, it got him through a lot in life, but even he is motivated to do the hard things. He's motivated to do the hard things because his core mission is to be like the baddest man alive, to do things which other people don't do. And that's motivation, by the way. He is motivated to do the things because he has a motive, okay? It doesn't make any sense relying on discipline only, because this is how you will crash and burn. And this is exactly what I was doing. I was like, come on. But most of the days I wasn't working fuck all because my system wasn't working. And when it wouldn't work, I'd beat myself up and I'd be like, come on, how can you do this? You're so bad, etc., etc. Why do you think these thoughts get me? Because the thing is, if you don't love yourself, why would you help yourself? Why would you help a person you hate? Imagine someone spits at your fucking face and steps on your shoe. Would you help them? If someone talks to you in a way you talk to yourself, would you want to help them? Tough questions, but if we really can have the humility to answer them, we'd often say the N-word, which is no. That's what happens, because usually I didn't like myself and I wouldn't even want to help myself in these situations. And in the first cycle, we were working 1 or 2 hours. And then in the next cycle, I was, okay, we had the motivation to start working, but I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll just watch a YouTube video instead. And you don't consciously have these thoughts. You're like, yeah, I fucking hate myself, I'm not going to work. It's all subconscious. It's all maybe we're struggling to admit this, but this is kind of what happens. You kind of know this already. How do you talk to yourself? What are the thoughts that you get? So, how do you fix this? How do you actually not talk to yourself in a bad way? How do you fix your mental health? How do you become your own fucking friend for once in your life? You have to understand how thoughts work. The way thoughts work is basically imagine your mind as a river, and some items are flowing down this river. And the way items are flowing down is they come into your mind and they go away. And for some time you're thinking about them, for some time you're not. And it just kind of happens like that. The main problem comes when we're over-identified with our thoughts and we don't understand where they come from. So usually the way spiritual people and people who actually understand this shit talk about it is that you're the observer of your thoughts. You're the person looking at this. You're the person looking at these thoughts, looking at the river. You're outside of it. The problem comes once you're in the river and you feel like you are your thoughts. When you get the thought, oh fuck, I should have done better there. And you think you're the thought, yeah, I should have fucking done better, how dare I? And you're kind of elaborating on this thought and you're becoming it. Of course you're going to hate yourself. But if you can just be this person and you're like, I feel like I should have done better there. I feel like this. I am not, I should have done better there. I feel like I should have done better there. It takes so much weight off your shoulders. Once you're like, I am sad, or I feel sad. There's a huge difference here, because now I can understand that my mind is generating these thoughts. My brain or my mind, or I don't know how to really think of it, is generating these thoughts of, okay, I feel sad. I feel like I should have done better. I feel like I did this. I feel like I did that. You can indulge in them and you cannot. And that's the beauty of it, Even on the days where you're kind of fucking up, you're kind of having a bad day, because let's be honest, everyone has bad days. You're like, hold on, I got up on time. I made myself a meal. I got to the gym. I hit a good session, but I'm really feeling demotivated to work today. You could focus on that one thought of, I really don't feel like I'm going to work today. I'm really slacking off in work. I'm really not getting anything done. Now, you could start to identify with it. You could be like, I'm not a productive person now. I'm not a good person. I'm not productive. I will never make anything happen in life. You could come over-identified with it, or you could watch all of the other fucking thoughts, and you could be like, wait, hold on, I woke up on time today. I am a disciplined person. I went and hit the gym. I worked really hard. You could have these thoughts. You can choose what fucking thoughts to have. That's the insane part about this. You can literally become a very different person just by shifting your focus. Just by focusing on these thoughts, which are actually positive, you will have an entirely different mind. Now, the question is, which state of mind do you make better decisions in? Once you're over-identified with this negative thoughts and becoming this lack thereof kind of fucking person that, oh no, I can't do it, how dare I, da-da-da-da-da. Or if you're like, yeah, hold on, I am disciplined. I am the shit, come on. Are you going to have the mindset of, okay, come on, I'm going to fucking work even when I don't feel like it, once you're this person, or you're just going to dabble on your day, and once one bad thing happens, you're going to become over-identified with that thing. You have to realize that you're the person sitting on the bench looking at the thought. You are not the thought itself. This is incredibly important, because once you're not over-identified with all of these fucking thoughts, you become much stronger, you become much tougher, and you become much better at making decisions. That's the first thing I can recommend to you. Every single time you get a self-deprecating thought, put in a self-loving thought. And what you will notice is that over time, the manual thoughts that you put in your brain, that you're like, wait, hold on, I got the thought, I got the inkling to actually feel bad about myself. What if I just choose not to? Because I am the master of my own fate. I can be like, wait, hold on, yeah, I can't believe you've done better. I can't believe you didn't do better. Hold on, I actually did quite well there. If you start thinking like that, what you'll notice is that suddenly, slowly but surely actually, not too suddenly, but once you will notice, is that your thoughts have changed, and now you're getting like a bunch of positive thoughts, and you're like actually like swish to the stream that the river is flowing in, and you're like, holy shit, wait, I'm getting a bunch of good thoughts now and not bad thoughts, because you slowly managed to actually implant the positivity into them. So your whole state of mind and your whole thinking and your whole thoughts stream is going to change all of a sudden. And that's how you start loving yourself, and that's how you start making better decisions. And I know it sounds a bit cliche, I know it sounds a bit corny, but this is exactly how to do it, because if you like yourself, it's normal. You know what we talked about in the beginning, how we have instant gratification and how you have delayed gratification. This is IG, not Instagram. This is DG, not dev grips. And now this is, if you go very high up and then you go down, and this is kind of, you go a bit down, but then you go very high up. Obviously, delayed gratification is better. We've already talked about this. It's just kind of a fact. Why would you choose this? My answer is, for the most part, first of all, you lack long-term thinking. You don't actually have the concept of time's going to pass anyway, might as well choose the thing which is better for me in the long term. And the other thing is you don't really have self-love. Because the thing is, if you choose instant gratification, you are choosing self-harm. We know that this is overall net negative, this is net positive. So every single time you choose instant gratification, you're like, I need it now, I don't care about my future self. So every time you do something, sure, you still have the permission. I still do sometimes some like degenerate shit, but just have the mindset that I am doing this now for me, I don't care about my future self. Say that aloud, and every single time, I promise you, you will be much less motivated to do the bad thing. If you can just have the mindset of, I'm doing this out of a place of self-hate. I'm doing this out of a place. Okay, sure. Some instant gratification activities still have a place in life. I still will drink alcohol sometimes with my friends. I still will play video games twice a fucking year to have like a nostalgia session or something like that. I put my hands up and I'm like, fuck it, I'm maximizing pleasure now. I am aware that this will come back tomorrow. I am aware that I'm doing something dumb here. If you can have the humility to admit that, you will rewire your brain again to have these kind of fucking thoughts, these positive thoughts that want you to do positive things because you fucking love yourself. That's the whole thing. Finally, to wrap this session up, I know it's been quite long, but this is quite an intricate topic. What I like to talk about, which is the best thing in my opinion to actually cultivate good mental health, is GME. This is gratitude, meditation, exercise. If you can make it a habit every single fucking day to do gratitude, meditation, exercise, as little as you possibly can, if you're not feeling it, just do it, okay? That's the thing. Just actually have a streak of this. I don't like tracking habits. I don't like tracking input. I don't like tracking output. I'm not a person who's like too analytical in this sense, but these things actually change me. I don't like talking about, you need to do specifically this, because that's kind of my motto. I don't fucking know you, right? I don't know exactly what you want to do in life. I don't know what your goals are, but these things always help. If you can have a gratitude mindset, maybe gratitude journaling, that's a good practice to actually have a tracker about to do it every day. A bit of meditation, just to actually clear your fucking thoughts and be yourself again, and actually make sure that you have this kind of mindset where you're just viewing your thoughts and not actually over-identifying with them. And exercise to keep your body clean, to keep your body working, because that is very, very, very correlated to your mind's health as well. If you can just make sure that you do these, you will be the person who loves themselves, and you will be the person who gets the things that they want, because they want good for themselves. They are attracted to doing the good thing and not the bad thing. Okay, big breath after that one. I apologize if I went a bit too fast, but I still feel like that was dragging on a bit, maybe because it's such a loaded topic. It's such a big topic to talk about in a video like this, but I tried to jam in as much source as I possibly could. The next thing is mental blocks. It's very similar to physical blocks, but it's mainly mental stuff, though. You feel like you're kind of motivated, you kind of want to do the thing, but something always gets in the way. You still can't just fucking get yourself to do it. It's a very weird feeling. It's very similar to procrastination. It overlaps in some sections, but I like to call it mental blocks. So the first kind of mental block we're going to be talking about is identity. The reason I want to start with identity is because it really overlaps with the previous section where we talked about over-identifying with certain thoughts and not others. If you have had instances in your life where you were told who you are, when you were told what you are, based on things that you did, you will carry that on. That's kind of a thing that our identity copes as even if the thing is not good for you, you kind of latch onto it because it's familiar. Our brain kind of craves comfort over sustainability and happiness and all of this kind of stuff. You know why Stockholm Stockholm syndrome exists is very similar to this. The reason people just relive their trauma and shit like this, although it sounds kind of nasty to say, is mainly because of this. It's mainly because of the brain craving comfort. So if actually, before I give you all of these hypotheticals, I'm going to talk about my example. So when I was a kid, I was the youngest in my class. I was taken out of kindergarten as soon as possible by my parents because I really didn't like it there. And I was always small. I was the best target for bullying. Thankfully, it didn't happen to me. But thinking back, I would have been the prime example of the best target because I was very small. I didn't stand up for myself. And I always had this identity that I was the small kid. I was frail. I was weak. I was kind of good at other stuff, but I was always this kind of kid who was physically always inferior to other people. And this carried on because in high school, when I had the chance to actually better myself, when I had any chance, it was sports day, it was like, I don't know, my friend would go into the gym, I always declined that, even without fucking having a second thought about it. I was like, oh no, I can't do that because I'm the small kid. I didn't have this thought that, it's because I'm the small kid. The kind of beliefs that you have about yourself that are so ingrained in your identity, you don't even question them. So I was like this person. I was like, oh no, I can't do that because I'm the small kid. Again, I didn't have this thought, but that's just how my mind operated. I already looked for an excuse before they could even finish the fucking sentence of will you come to the gym with me? The teacher was talking about sports day. I was already thinking about what kind of excuse I'm going to tell to not go that day. That's how my mind operated because I was taught that I was small. Now, I thankfully got out of this. It took a lot of work, it took a lot of internal work, and a lot of my friends kind of bugging me to go with them to the gym. And now I've been going to the gym for 4 years, and I'm probably bigger than all of the people who were in my class back then. Actually, I think I am. Weird flex. The thing is, you could be identifying with being lazy. You could be told by your mum, oh, you never do the dishes, or you never do the chores, and that kind of keeps on with you in your life. You're not good at learning languages is another common one. You're not good at this certain thing. Is there like a language learning gene? Is there a laziness gene? Look it up. Like type it into ChatGPT. I promise you the answer will be no. You just have these fucking beliefs ingrained into you that, oh, you're not good at doing that. Oh, no, you're not a good worker. Oh, no, you're not productive. These fucking shits come into our brain and they take up so much mental space, mental RAM, that they stop us from doing anything. We still get the motivation, much like in the physical blocks example, yet these motherfuckers come in the way. This is how we should be looking, and this is how it is. We just get blocked half the way. We don't actually have this fucking motivation pulling us to do the thing, because these things are like, every single time we would get the inkling to work to actually, because our rational brain realizes it's good for us, we've got rid of all of the mental blocks in this video, all of the motivation blocks, and then this thing comes up, and we're like, oh no, we're going to get in the way. Yeah, you're a lazy person. Yeah, fuck you. Yeah, lazy bitch, that's who you are. So first of all, you need to become aware of these. Now, it's very hard to do because, again, you question the things which you dare to question. The things that are too deeply ingrained in your soul, you don't really question them anymore. So it's kind of hard to get, actually become aware of this. It takes a lot of humility and a lot of self-awareness. But if you can actually think back to your life of what are the things that you don't even fucking question? What are the things that are too deeply ingrained into you? What are the things that you seem to be acting a bit weird about? What are the things that aren't normal that you do? These kind of things. Like, I got out of every fucking sports day. I made sure that I was walking on the, like every single time we were playing like football on PE, I was walking around with my hands in my pockets, trying not to get the ball. This is like a recurring fucking theme in my life. I was playing out of position to not get the pass while playing football. Nowadays I fucking love playing football, but then I was literally, my desire was to be invisible back then because I genuinely didn't want to fucking do it. If you can actually be a bit self-aware here and be like, yeah, fuck it, it fucking pains me to admit it, but I know what he's talking about. I'm this person. I always say that I'm lazy because it's kind of been tossed onto me. I always say that I'm tired, even though like I genetically don't have anything fucking wrong with me. These kind of things. Like, is there a tired gene? Yeah, sure, some people need a bit more sleep. Like, there are kind of genes for chronotypes. There is some leniency there, but it really isn't that big of a difference between people. So what are you over-identified with that is actually ruining your life? You're not even fucking questioning it anymore. The next thing we're going to talk about is actually fear. This is very similar because in some sense, we all fear something. And I'm not talking about snakes. I'm not talking about spiders. I'm talking about deep shit here. And it really speaks to me as well because I used to be the kid who would always kind of, this is something that again runs subconsciously and kind of is hijacked by your subconscious circuits and you don't even know about it. So I'm going to give you 2 examples here. One of them is starting a social media marketing business because this is what I lived in kind of 2021, 2022. No, 2022, 2023, sorry. And what I was looking to do, I was consuming a shit ton of information online about how to start an SMMA. I was even like asking my friends, begging them to start with me. And I knew that what I would have to do is I would have to call people on the phone, This scared the fuck out of me. I was very, very scared of rejection. Keep in mind, I had never asked a girl out at this stage. I had never called up someone without wanting to. Every single time I booked an appointment, it was always online. I made sure I didn't have to call someone because I was so fucking scared of rejection. I was so scared of other people judging me. This is probably the most recurring theme in the term of fear of judgment. Because people now have the opportunity to reject you. And this was really painful for me. I really didn't want to face this. So my SMMA, although it would lead to money, which I really, really wanted, I also noticed that it would lead to this. And that was just something that I was not willing to take. I wasn't logically thinking, I really like money, but I don't want to be rejected, so this is not a good thing for me. It manifested in the way where I fucking tried, and I couldn't understand why I just wasn't able to call people. I couldn't understand why I never started. For months and months and months, I would procrastinate. And this is what fucking went on, and it was painful. It pained me deep in my soul. But this is kind of what happens. Your subconscious mind already generates these thoughts. It already generates a flowchart of things that might happen. And it already comes to the conclusion that since this getting money is rejection is a prerequisite of money, to get money, you must go through rejection. It's like, yeah, I'm simply not willing to deal with that. This is a deep-rooted fear of me, not willing to deal with rejection. And now you simply don't want to do this. Now, you can kind of get around this, and that's exactly what I did. I partnered up with one of my buddies, and he was the person who was kind of calling, so I just did the background work, and I had to live and still procrastinate on beating my fear of rejection for another 2 years from that point. And I wish I would have done it then. I wish I would have charged through it, and I wish I would have known how to beat fear back then, but I didn't. And even from that point on, I still procrastinated it. And this fucking thing ruled my life, for years and years and years. This fucking thing was this kind of devil above every single decision I made. This was the thing that was blocking me from so many things that were good for me, and I should have felt motivation towards, but this thing was always in the way. Another example would probably be self-sabotage. So even if, let's say, everything else that comes across the line, comes across in between you and making money, let's say you're fine with rejection, you're fine with running the ads, you're fine with doing everything, SMMA means social media marketing agency, you are going to get it. But the thing is, even after you get the money, there's seconds, thirds, and fourth, and etc., or the consequences. So you might, let's say you get rich, you might need to leave home. A lot of people talk about this, like Tupac, for example, having to move out of his home and not feeling like wanted where he is, and like not living where he used to live, but also not fitting in with the rich, higher class people. That's something. You might actually have to move out of your home. You might have to ditch friends. That's what a lot of rich people say, right? They have to ditch friends, or ditch people who drain you. And a lot of times this is your childhood friends, because you've just been assigned to them randomly, right? You sat next to them on the first day in school. Now you're friends. Who knows if you're actually compatible with them, right? A lot of these kind of things, your mind already knows you'll have to do. Now, I'm not saying you need to do either of these, but there's a lot more that come into this. There's like a third thing, there's like a fourth thing, and I'm not going to list them all out. You already know them. Whether or not it comes to your mind right now consciously, you already know what it would take. And maybe some other thing, maybe it's before money, such as rejection, maybe it's after money, you get the sense that this is not worth it. Your subconscious mind computes the whole equation and comes to the very, very rational conclusion that this is not worth it for us. Where is the thing? Is it these things that you're scared of? Do you need to beat these fears? Or is this logical? Because procrastination is a logical thing. Procrastination is not the enemy, because this is a very, very logical mindset. If your body, your nervous system, whatever, comes to the conclusion that this is not worth it for us, then you're not going to do it. It's going to be incredibly hard. And again, you can discipline yourself once, you can discipline yourself twice. It's not going to last. And as Carl Jung says, until the unconscious is made conscious, you will call it fate, and it will rule your life. That's exactly what's happening here. So this is your dilemma right now. Maybe you can switch to something else and actually come to the conclusion that, okay, maybe this is not for me. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I should actually do something different. Or you can do a bit of soul searching and be like, wait, hold on. Am I actually fine with rejection? Am I actually fine with getting rich? That's a funny question, but it's legitimate. Am I actually fine with getting rich? Ask yourself these questions. Okay, the sixth thing we're going to talk about is misalignment, which is very akin to the previous point. That is why I sequenced it this way. Misalignment is basically a value mental blocker, which basically means you're not aligned to your soul's deepest desire. So this might sound a bit weird, but I'm going to explain it through the lens of the self-determination theory. So the self-determination theory basically says that there's two types of motivation, intrinsic and extrinsic, and you have to picture them kind of on a spectrum. Left is extrinsic and right is intrinsic. Now, the better it's better if your values or your motivations are kind of intrinsic. That means coming from within. So intrinsic, the definition of it would be you genuinely love doing the thing. When you're doing the thing, you feel like you're in flow. You're in a state of love. You're in a state of enlightenment. You just don't have any thoughts in your mind. You're very good at it, etc., etc., etc. Extrinsic would be the opposite. You kind of do it and you're motivated to do it, but it's because of external things. You don't love it for the sake of the thing. You know what Mihai Csikszentmihalyi says in the book Flow is that flow is kind of the optimal state of human experience, and it's I forgot the word. What's the fucking word? Autotelic. The flow state is autotelic. That means you're not doing it for anything else that the flow state comes by. You're not doing it for any order consequence that the flow state gives you. You're doing it for the state itself, because the state itself of doing the thing is gratifying for you. You like doing the thing. That's what intrinsic means. So the self-determination theory says the more intrinsic, the motivated, the better, because then you will not need to rely on discipline. That's what we kind of call motivation. I just feel like I must do the thing. You like doing the thing. For me, some stuff that are actually like autotelic is, for example, creating music. Yesterday I was making a beat and I got lost in it. I was doing it for like 2.5 hours and I fucking loved it and I lost track of time, and I'm not going to publish it. Best believe no one's going to hear that fucking beat in their life, yet I love doing it because I just like doing that thing. For example, playing football sometimes with my friends. I like doing that as well. I lose track of time when I do that. There's a few things for everyone. Robert Greene says that it's very, very worth looking back at your childhood and things that kind of shaped you, because those things might be your autotelic activities, which you were just naturally drawn to, but also you can kind of make things autotelic and these kind of flow state activities by actually like fulfilling the 3 aspects of the self-determination theory. The self-determination theory says that there are 3 things that drive an activity being intrinsic, or motivation of a certain thing to be intrinsic, which are the following. Autonomy. I thought I'd spell that wrong, but I didn't. Autonomy basically meaning you want to do the thing. You choose to be at that time, at that place, doing that certain thing. That is very important, because if you don't have control over what you're doing, you're not really going to want to do it. And even in a weird sense, if you previously felt like you wanted to do it, if your control gets taken away, that activity is no longer autonomous. So, for example, when I come home from school when I'm 10 years old and I'm feeling really nice, I had a good day in school, sun's shining, and I want to get home and I want to help my mother. I've made an actual conscious decision that, I'm going to do the dishes. I'm going to, unpack the dishwasher, do some shit like that. I get home, I'm about to start doing it, and then my mum tells me to do the dishwasher. And now all of a sudden I don't want to fucking do it. You can probably relate to this, because this is quite a common experience of your autonomy being stripped away from you, and then you no longer wanting to do the thing. Exactly this. Your autonomy is incredibly important when your motivation is made intrinsic. If your mom says, you better do it because I'm going to fucking slap the shit out of you, you're still going to want to do it, but it's going to be extrinsic now. So that's kind of how you should picture this. The next thing is going to be competence. Competence basically means how good are you at what you do? How skilled are you at what you do? If you're competent at doing the thing, you will like doing the thing because you're skilled at it. Now, one of these alone doesn't mean you want to do it. Now, if I choose to start skating, I've never skated before, I don't like the people who skate, I don't like anything about skating, I'm not going to want to do it just because I'm autonomous. If I'm good at something, I'm not going to want to do it. I went to college because I was good at computers, I was good at analytical thinking. I left it after 2 months. I fucking hated it. I couldn't imagine myself being behind the computer for my whole life. I didn't really align with all of the computer scientist students. They were all fucking nerds playing chess and looking at anime and stuff like that. And no disrespect, right? But I just didn't really feel like I was one of them. And that's kind of what the third thing is, which is actually relatability. Well, I wrote relatedness because that's a bit better word in my opinion, but how well do you feel with the people around you? How related to them do you feel? How well do you feel working in a team with them? How much do you admire them? How much do you like them? How much do you respect them? These are the 3 things which actually consist of making any activity more to the right. If you have any activity, add these things to it and you will push it into extrinsic territory as much as possible. Make sure that you're actually there because you want to, at the time you want to, etc., etc. Again, you can't be 100% autonomous in most things, but if you can just add a bit more creativity to your work, if you can add a bit more you choose your own hours type shit, you will be a lot more autonomous. If you can start to get better at what you do, and the good thing is you will get better if you just do it for a longer period of time, you will acquire competence and you will want to do the thing more and it will become more intrinsic. And finally, if you are more related, you actually have good company and you like the people you work with and it's a genuinely fulfilling task to work on, you will also be a bit more intrinsic in doing that activity. So this is how you align yourself. If you can just push the activity and choose to do things which are a bit more on the intrinsic side of things, you will be a lot better. Now, with that said, I'm going to say the caveat that if you still have things in your life which are extrinsic, that's fine. We're optimizing here. You don't need to be 100% optimized, 100% dialed in, because in some seasons of life, look, I get it. You're going to have to hustle. You're going to have to work for money. You're going to have to work to be a bit higher in status with the people around you. It's kind of part of life. So I'm not going to fucking tell you to ditch everything that is extrinsic and live on this high horse of mine and tell you that everything you're doing is wrong, because that's not the case. I'm just telling you, if you have something, try to add these to make sure that that activity is as intrinsic as possible, and in the long term just try to align to this one. And for the final part of this video, I'm going to be talking about momentum and belief. Momentum is probably the hardest thing to get, because it is momentum. If you start, you don't have it already. And the way you build momentum is mostly by celebrating small wins. It's mostly by being in a positive attitude, positive frame of mind, which we talked about mainly in the mental health section of this video. If you can have the concept to actually tell yourself that you're the shit for doing the bare fucking minimum, you're going to grow a lot more. Now, you with your hustle culture mindset are probably not going to say that this is a good thing. You're going to be like, no, but I need never satisfied, never finish David Goggins and only celebrate shit that actually matters. And I get it, because we should be high achievers. We should aim for high goals. And if you're watching this, especially this far, you're probably like way ahead of the average. But even if we can just be our own friend and we can celebrate the initial win, we will get dopamine off of that. The winner effect actually exists. This means that once we get a win, we're more likely to get wins afterwards. We're statistically more likely to get wins. This is in the book. I forgot the author name, but he talks about this at length. And it really, really does exist. Because if we start to get momentum and we start to get one win, another win, even if it's not what we want, we can build off of that. However, if you start a business, let's say a YouTube channel, and you don't make any money in the first month, if you don't make any money in the second month, the third month, you can start looking at other things as wins. You can be like, wait, I posted. I was consistent. If I remain consistent, I will make money one way or another, right? I will celebrate the small wins. I will celebrate the stuff that isn't exactly what I want, but I know that if I continue with those small wins, they will amount to big wins, and I will actually get to where I want in due time. So if you can just actually take advantage of the winner effect and build momentum that way, you will be much more likely to succeed. If you get on a scooter, it's the hardest to actually get off the ground. If you get on a bike, you have to push yourself a bit until you can actually start cycling and actually start carrying on with the momentum that you generated. And the way you keep momentum is by being motivated, is by doing every single step before this one, and also just remembering the analogy of discipline and motivation combined. Some days, even when you do all of this shit right, you're just not going to have the motivation required to get off. This is kind of what you will look like if you take all of the action steps in this video. Maybe one day you're not going to be motivated. And that is when you use discipline. Discipline isn't supposed to be used when you don't fucking want to do the thing at all, period. It's supposed to be used when you have a worse day and when you're like, you know what, I don't really feel like it. Then you can push yourself up and be like, come on, it's going to happen. One of these days, I'm not going to be that motivated. Then you use the tool of discipline and motivate yourself by these kind of extrinsic things. Maybe you do a deal with yourself that, okay, if I do this, I get to do this other thing that I want to do later. You get some accountability. You add these kind of extrinsic things from the previous example to actually make sure that you push yourself over the line. Or you just don't push yourself over the line. That also exists. You can rely on motivation if it strikes this often. If you are motivated 6 days of the week, for most people, that's enough. For most people, 4 days of the week is enough. Now, I'm not saying to fucking slack off. Again, you can use discipline as a tool. It's really nice. But you don't have to every single day. You can just be of the mindset of, okay, I'm going to have nice days and some days are going to be shit, and that's fine. I'm going to have this momentum, and the way I'm going to carry it on is by being good most of the days. And if I have one day off, I'm not going to fucking beat myself up over it and lose momentum and actually crash and burn, just like in the mental health example. And the final thing I want to talk about is belief. If you don't believe that you can achieve the thing, you're not going to. It's similar to the mental blocker section of this video, but it's a bit different, and that's why I'm bringing it here. So if you don't genuinely believe deep in your soul that you can reach something, it's going to be very hard for you to actually work towards it. So what I kind of recommend, if you don't see yourself as a person who's a good speaker, you're not going to do a YouTube channel or something, or you're not going to become a president. But if you just tell yourself the goal is to put out one video, to do one public speech, your brain's going to be like, that's reasonable. I could film myself once talking and chatting shit to the camera. I could try and actually, even though it was probably going to go horribly, that's the kind of thought you're going to get. Even though it's probably going to go horribly, I can still stand in front of my class and tell them this and that. Yeah. That's like kind of reasonable. But if you get this, once you've done this, no matter how it went, you've already done it. And now you're a bit better. You're +1 skill point. Now with +1 skill point, you can make the next goal, publish 2 videos, do 2 public speeches, do a public speech with a bit bigger room. Now you can build from there. So if you don't set, would you believe it? My camera died again. Anyway, wrapping this up, the final thing is this. If you can go step by step, not only will you accumulate momentum, and not only will you get this kind of, come on, we're actually in the fucking progress of doing things, and you will build momentum, but you will update your belief of your perception of yourself. You will update your identity. You will start to think of yourself as someone who can, as someone who's able, because every single step that you accumulate, every single step you go down on this journey, you will be like, wait, hold on, I did that. Hold on, I am the person who did that. I'm the person who can do a bit more. And every single time you will, step 1, you will become 1 plus skill point, +2 skill points, +3. And then you're like, hold on, I can aim for becoming the fucking president. I can aim for becoming the biggest YouTuber in my country. You can start doing that type of shit, which is very, very beautiful. So that is how you become motivated. If you take every single piece of advice that I told you in this video, and if you actually do the soul searching, and if you actually do the action steps which I told you to do, you will become motivated. Motivation will strike. If your brain is working on your side, if you like yourself, if you know this equation of delayed gratification being better than instant gratification, if you're in a good mental state, you don't have these physical, mental blockers, and you're just a functioning fucking human being, you will be motivated. Now, the reason that is very, very hard to achieve is because of that, is because there's so many components of it. It's because it's very hard to not have one draining person around you. It's very hard to be 100% healed from all your mental traumas. It's very hard to have everything. So the best solution for this is motivation plus discipline. If you can discipline yourself once or twice a week, that's very nice. That's an incredibly bulletproof system. But if you can just take the advice that I told you in this video and actually apply it, you will be fucking 10 times more motivated than you currently are. I promise you that. Goodbye.